Okay, fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. If you are a Patreon patron or if you are a YouTube subscriber, thank you. You're getting this content real time. As soon as we publish it, you have access to it. If you are doing neither of those things and you have an Amazon Prime account, please try to remember to link that to your Twitch Prime account. We get paid every month by Amazon. You have to re-up that every month. So follow the instructions in the show description below and you can get that linked. It costs you nothing. It's a perk of Amazon Prime and we get paid anyway, so good for us. Our question today from Patreon from Darth Irv. Sony's regulatory filings around the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition have attracted a lot of attention to the emphatic language Sony uses to describe the threat of Call of Duty being controlled by Xbox. Is this all bluster, or do you feel that PlayStation is legitimately scared of the acquisition going through? Should it be? Is Microsoft being too nice, allowing Call of Duty to remain on PlayStation consoles for so long? First of all, Sony really doesn't have a say in this at all. The regulators are required to view the industry and determine if there is a substantial lessening of competition. And Sony's opinion is completely irrelevant. It is up to the regulators to determine objectively whether there'll be a lessening competition. The only real risk to Sony is if Microsoft uses the acquisition in a predatory manner to harm PlayStation. And that's a real risk. And the way Microsoft would do that, if they were so inclined, is they would say, okay, we own Call of Duty and we own Diablo and StarCraft and World of Warcraft and King and everything else, and nothing we own will ever appear on a Sony console again. We're yanking it. They don't have the rights to catalog either. Screw them. And so the regulators are right to look at this because that could happen. And the regulators, prior to signing off on the deal, are going to require Microsoft to maintain the status quo. That's the easy answer. The status quo is that the Activision supports the PlayStation 5. And so the likely outcome is that prior to signing off on the deal going through, the three regulatory bodies are going to require Microsoft to commit that it will support the PlayStation 5 in the same manner that Activision has supported it in the past. And that means Call of Duty on PS5. Sony's whiny bitch move in regulatory filings was they only committed to supporting us for the contract term, which is 3 years. To which Microsoft said, well, we'll do that for 3 years and another 3. And Sony said, not enough. Well, just a reminder, the PlayStation 5 came out in 2020. This is 2022. So Microsoft just agreed to support the PlayStation 5 through 2028. That's 6 more years. And how many of you, raise your hand out there, think PS5 will be Sony's only console in 2028? I mean, they'll have a PS6. So what's going to end up happening is Microsoft's going to say, so long as the PS5 sells, fill in the blank, 5 million units a year, 3 million units a year, we'll make Call of Duty available. But if Sony ever stops selling, more than 3 million, it's not economically viable for us to make Call of Duty for a dying console. That's legit. And no, it's not anti-competitive to say we won't support a dying console. We just talked about this. Who supports PSVR? If they don't sell very many units, you can't sell very many games. Why would you spend the money? So Microsoft's going to agree to that. Sony are just being whiny little babies about this. I'm sorry. Yes, they genuinely fear this. And the reason they genuinely fear it is Sony has built an ecosystem around a business model that allowed third parties to create content for Sony and to pay Sony for the privilege of Sony allowing them to put their games on the PlayStation. So Sony gets a royalty for every copy of Call of Duty sold. That's pretty perverse. It's Activision's game, and they have to pay Sony a royalty for the right to be on PS5. And Sony is whining to regulators, we should keep getting that royalty. Not we should keep having it available for our customer, which is what they're saying in the filing. No, we want the royalty. So the point is that I agree with Sony, by the way, that if you pull Call of Duty off the PlayStation now and forever, that the likelihood of a new purchaser buying a PS5 is low, and buying an Xbox is high, or subscribing to Game Pass is high. The status quo is support the PS5, and that's the likely outcome of all the regulatory decrees. Now, I read through the UK Competition and Markets Authority brief. It was 25 points, 31 points, 31 paragraphs, 31 number of paragraphs. The first 24 dealt with what we just talked about. The last 5 or 6 dealt with Game Pass being anti-competitive, and putting Call of Duty on Game Pass being anti-competitive for PlayStation. I don't even know what they call it anymore. They changed the name. It was PS Now, and it was PlayStation Plus X or something, Ultra, Platinum, whatever. Anyway, that it was anti-competitive. Okay, raise your hand. How many people know how many Activision games are on the PlayStation subscription streaming service? I know. None. And why is that? Activision never puts anything on any service. Somebody told me like Crash Bandicoot was on one of them for like a limited period of time. They experiment. They've never supported a streaming service. They didn't support Game Tap. Anybody remember that one? They didn't support OnLive, and they don't support Game Pass. So it's kind of hard to argue. This is like saying if Netflix, no, maybe I'll use Netflix. I want to get this right. If Netflix, if we allow Netflix to buy Miller World, which is a comic book creator, then oh my God, movies like Wanted, which are Miller World's content, will never be on Disney Plus. Or if Amazon buys MGM, movies like James Bond will never be on Netflix. Guess what? Regulators didn't say that. If Disney buys Fox, movies like Deadpool and Avatar will never be on Netflix. Guess what? The government didn't say that, because Netflix is a big boy, and they could have bought those services too. Amazon could buy anybody they want. Microsoft can buy anybody they want. Google can buy anybody they want. So can Sony. So if Sony wanted Activision content on PlayStation Plus, Ultra, whatever it's called, they could have bought Activision content. The crazy thing is, Sony doesn't even put its own first-party games on its streaming service. So they have no right to argue that by Microsoft putting Call of Duty on Game Pass, that they suddenly should be entitled to have that too. No chance. And there are no Netflix originals on any other streaming service. There are no Disney originals on any other streaming service. Everybody has, is Uncharted on Xbox? No. Should it be? Never has been. Never will be. So, everybody's allowed to have proprietary content. Did anybody argue when Sony bought Insomniac? Nobody argued that, oh my God, Insomniac made an Xbox exclusive, and now nothing will ever be on Game Pass again because Sony bought Insomniac. Nobody cares. And by the way, when Microsoft bought Bethesda, I'm sure Sony didn't like it, but the regulators didn't stop it. This is just consolidation happens. So the answer to your question, Darth Irv, is I don't think that the regulators will approve the deal if Microsoft intends to make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox. I do think they will approve the deal if they extract a concession from Microsoft that Call of Duty will be on PlayStation for a reasonable period of time, which I would say is as long as the PS5 is in heavy manufacture. I do think that Microsoft is not being too nice. I think that the analogy to Call of Duty being on PlayStation is the same as Fox movies being in the movie theaters. So, of course, you'd like to monetize Call of Duty. An earlier question we answered in the prior episode, people said, well, if Microsoft makes Call of Duty available on Game Pass, they're going to lose, let's say, 10 million unit sales of Call of Duty because those people won't buy it. But they're going to get the Game Pass subscription. If Disney buys Fox, why would they pull movies out of the theater? They're going to be in the theater, and then 45 to 180 days later, they'll be on Disney Plus. And that's how they've been releasing their films. So Microsoft still wants the 10 million units of Call of Duty that they can sell on PlayStation, and they'll still get that. There's no reason to give those up, and they're not going to give them up. They're not going to be allowed to give them up because the regulators won't let them. So Sony's going to continue to be supported. It's just that Game Pass is going to become that much more of a value, because if you have an Xbox or you're just a Game Pass subscriber, you get Call of Duty for free. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. If you're a Patreon patron or a YouTube subscriber, we really appreciate it. You're getting this real time. If you are an Amazon Prime member, please link your Twitch Prime account to your Amazon Prime account. The instructions are below in the show description, and we get paid for that, so we very much appreciate that. If you're doing none of those things, follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. I'll see you next time.